If a man decides to leave early for college without telling you, rejects you, asks for space via an email, stops calling, but when you do call, another woman picks up the phone, and then he comes home from all of that and surprises you with a proposal, you're allowed to make at least one bad decision, right? Welcome back to Femme Furious, where we are unpacking every summer after, particularly the section of the book where every single character desperately needs therapy. We are talking about anxiety, why women are accused of overthinking when they're correctly just identifying a problem, the burden of shame after 12 years, and why one mistake can feel like the end of the world when you're a teenage girl who spent her entire life trying to be good. So buckle up because we are entering into the emotional underworld with our girl Persephone Fraser, and unfortunately for all of us, the Florek brothers are waiting inside. Welcome back to another episode of Femme and Furious. I am your host, Julia Rose Portella. Let us dive into some housekeeping for this episode. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my shirt, which is the Freeport Water Taxi. If you're on Long Island, come hang out with us. This is my best friend and her family, their family business. It is a lot of fun. If you're in Manhattan, take a day trip, come to Long Island, come to the Freeport Water Taxi, hang out on the Nautical Mile. We're going to have a great time. I bartend on their boat, so I will be serving you up your drinks. If you're a fan of the show and you listen, come chat and say hello. Let me know who you are. I'd love to meet you in real life. Speaking of in real life events, I am starting to book out some events. Some of them are a little bit more academic. I have put together a keynote about the socio-political impact of the fangirl, which is all of us here listening to this podcast. So I'm starting to bring that out into the world, into different organizations and festivals and conferences. So if you are somebody who wants to see that, I will be posting those on Patreon as they come up. If you're somebody who wants to host me to come and talk, please just send me an email, femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com, slide into my inbox and let me know. But everything about our live events will be happening over on Patreon. I'm also planning some really fun events, some book boyfriend brackets, some different pop culture events, trivia. Those will be live out in the world. And so again, if you're local, I'll be posting those. If not, some of them will have virtual options where you can come in. So please go and join the Patreon because that is a great place for you to be connected and it's completely free to you. You do not have to do a paid tier, though if you'd like to, go for it. Also, if you want to hang out, come to the Common Thread book club. I go in depth about what Common Threads is, pretty much last episode if you listened, but I will tag the episode that I've just announced, all of the changes that I'm making to the podcast. I will tag that in the show notes below. So if you're interested, you can listen to that and get more details. But Common Threads happening June 17th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link to register for that is in the show notes. The theme is Pride. So come hang out. Today, we are finishing up the book Every Summer After. On Friday, we are diving into the TV series. The TV series hasn't released at this point, so I'm not really sure. We might be doing episodes 1 through 4. Most likely, we will probably be doing episodes 1 and 2, a deep dive into those episodes. So just hang tight, but we are moving in that direction. We are staying in Barry's Bay for a little while longer. I also want to let you know, you should start prepping for House of the Dragon because that is the next big thing that I am covering. So I'm going to tag the book down below if you want to read it. Okay. Let's have a quickie where we will breeze through our key feminist themes and moments. So I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but Sam and Percy are such a progressive couple. They have a third-party situation going on. And no, it's not Charlie. It is Percy's anxiety. It is present in nearly every major decision, every single misunderstanding, every moment where the two of them fail to connect. It is so pertinent as an entity that is sitting between Percy and Sam. It's actually so prevalent that it's annoying that Sam does not take this more into consideration, considering how much he knows Percy and how deep and intimate their relationship is. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room because a lot of people don't like this book because of what happened between Percy and Charlie. Percy gets a lot of hate because people do not like to be uncomfortable, but truthfully, as a bookish community, we need to step up our feminism game. People are so willing to forgive the transgressions of these morally gray men who do really, truly atrocious things, like some of them crimes against humanity, or like taking romantasy out of it. There are so many romance books that get so much love online, and these men will be like quoted as like their top book boyfriends when they're emotionally stagnant in these romance novels. So it's frustrating to me that Persephone Fraser, who is nuanced and complicated, is this hated character because she makes a decision that people don't like, even though I think she makes a decision that is very understandable for her character. So we can't talk about Percy without talking about her flaws, and we can't talk about her flaws without talking about her trigger, which is her anxiety. I mean, this is really a young girl and a woman who really is struggling with a chronic anxiety disorder. I mean, this is like every single page she's having a thought that is quite anxious. So I think it's one of the smartest things that this book does because it challenges the assumption that anxious women are always overreacting or imagining problems that aren't there. Because if we look at the facts, Percy's fears don't emerge out of nowhere. When she's 16, Sam rejects her after they finally kiss. Then she gets a boyfriend. He keeps pressing on it. He tries to mark his territory with her when Mason comes for the summer. And when he asks Percy, like, hey, why do you like this person? Why do you like Mason? She's like, because he likes me back. She's honest. She feels deeply rejected. She feels hurt that Sam would tell Charlie about what has happened between them. So they have this moment with Anita where Charlie and Anita are like, hey, want to come be part of our threesome? Want to come hook up with us? Like, anybody would be an idiot to let go of you, Percy. And that's because Charlie is trying to rib at Sam, who he thinks is making a major mistake in letting Percy go. And yet, Percy calls him out on this. She's like, I don't want to be in the middle of this, right? So not only does Sam reject her, but then completely disregards the fact that she does have a boyfriend. Like, the second that he's like, you know what? I did make a mistake and I don't want to wait anymore. And I'm sorry that I've been confusing you. She's like, I have a boyfriend. Like, you need to respect that. And so he is confusing. Like, he is playing a lot of these games. And Percy says multiple times before we even get to the point where they're together, where she's like, I don't know if I can count on his feelings for me because they seem pretty fickle. And what she's feeling inside is so deeply profound. She calls it unrequited at one point. She feels that the love that she has for this person is one-sided, and that for Sam, this is something that maybe is something that he would want to explore, but not necessarily something that he feels as strongly as she does. So it's not like Percy is making this up, that she has these fears about the emotional stability of the relationship, and this is driving her anxiety all along, right? So not only does Sam reject her after they finally kiss, when they finally do get together, he then leaves early for school after failing to tell her until the last minute. Then when he gets to school, he starts calling her less. He starts writing her less. And eventually he sends her an email asking for boundaries. And when she finally works up the courage to call him and have a conversation about what's going on in their relationship, another girl answers the phone. How would you feel? You would feel so dismayed and hurt and, rejected. Clearly feel rejected. At that point, when she finally does get Sam on the line, he's drunk. So not only is he not talking to her, not only is he not prioritizing his relationship with her, he's got another girl in the room and he's drunk with her. How would you feel? I feel like the book community doesn't give Percy enough wiggle room to be having these overwhelming emotions when you are in love for the first time and you've been in love with this person for years and you feel like it's an unrequited situation until you finally get to date them and then they leave and everything is pointing to the fact that something in the relationship isn't adding up and fulfilling this other person because they're doing things that would suggest that they are not fulfilled by this relationship, or they are doing things that deliberately threaten the integrity of the relationship that you claim that you really want, that you fought for. So objectively speaking, Sam is not taking the actions of somebody who is prioritizing the relationship, who is focused on creating security within a relationship, especially when you know that there is pressure put onto a relationship because not only did you leave early, but now there's distance between you guys in a way that there wasn't necessarily distance before. These are the actions of somebody who is creating distance, whether it is intentional or not, whether it is malicious or not. Now, of course, does Sam mean to hurt her? No. And that's what makes the situation even more frustrating because Sam is obviously not acting out of malintent. He's not trying to punish Percy or to push her away because he doesn't care about her. The reality is much messier than that. And that's why I think this book is one of my favorites that I've read as far as a romance, because it's rooted in real life problems that real people have that don't just get solved easily and without years of moving through them. Sam is also a flawed character and individual. Years later, he will admit to Percy that he was struggling, that he didn't feel smart enough, that he wasn't enjoying school because of that. He was having trouble adjusting to his new environment. He was homesick and felt isolated and unhappy, and he didn't want to put pressure on Persephone because he had spent his whole life trying to get the hell out of Barry's Bay. But instead of really opening up and sharing those feelings with Percy, who has admitted to Sam in the past that she feels that he's hard to read, so it's not like she feels like he is an open book to her. Instead of sharing with her, this person who he says, I feel that I can talk to you about anything except this major thing that he's struggling with in the present moment, he doesn't allow her into his experience. And so he does what he always does when things become emotionally difficult, and he retreats. To me, Sam's greatest flaw isn't that he doesn't love Percy or that their feelings are mismatched. It's that, like he says, he never made this so abundantly fucking clear to Persephone that she was as unwavering in her love for him as he was to her. If she really knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was something else going on, her anxiety wouldn't have been triggered, and these things that are all seemingly pointing in the direction of bad as far as a relationship goes wouldn't necessarily be these alarm bells that send her running into Charlie's arms. And that's why I think that she spirals when she ends up getting this email that's asking for boundaries, because it makes it seem like she is the one that is inciting a problem, when in fact she's just doing things how her and Sam have always done them, and he doesn't know how to cope, and so he puts that pressure back on her in the same way that he did when he rejected her when they were 16, in the same way that he did when Charlie stole the kiss from him. Like, Sam overthinks things himself, and that is his greatest flaw, because it actually overrides maybe emotionally what he needs or wants. So when Persephone receives this email from Sam, I think she is correctly identifying that something has shifted between them, and that this has been a problem with Sam since the very beginning, that Sam gives a little and then takes it all back, and Persephone is the one that is left cleaning up the emotional turmoil of the situation. So by the time she gets the email, instead of seeing that Sam's withdrawal is evidence that he is struggling, she sees it as evidence that she's losing him, that she has done something, that he went and he outgrew the situation and he left her behind, which she admits, like, on my worst days, I feel like Sam doesn't want to just get out of Barry's Bay, that maybe there's a part of him that wants to, like, get away from me too, and is happy to, like, leave me behind. She's struggling so much with her anxiety and the stability of the relationship with Sam, even though she loves him and even though she knows that their friendship is very solid. The romantic piece of their relationship is always a question mark to her, and always has been since the very beginning. So understand how she is drawing these conclusions for herself. And look, from the feminist lens, women are constantly told that we're overthinking. Or, like, I don't know, maybe that's a unique to me problem, but I really don't think so. I have known so many women, myself included, who in relationships are told that it's not that deep. We're reading too much into things. We're creating problems that don't actually exist. Yada, yada, yada. But sometimes, like Percy, we aren't imagining anything at all. We are acting on our intuition. A woman's intuition is never fucking wrong. Let me tell you something. There are so many times when women will notice a change in behavior or a change in the vibe, a change in the energy. Sometimes we are recognizing the emotional distance, and sometimes we're just accurately identifying a problem in a relationship that maybe hasn't even surfaced yet. Either way, that societal construct is also filtering into how Persephone is dealing with things. The problem isn't that Percy sees the issue. The problem is that her anxiety convinces her that she is the issue. And so many women, again, myself included, have gone through that experience when we have been in a relationship where we really love somebody or we really like somebody. There is a profound difference between saying something feels wrong between us, and I don't know what that is and I don't know how to fix it because I can't put my finger on what the problem is, and saying something feels wrong because I am fundamentally unlovable, which is what happens to Persephone in her mind. Percy immediately jumps to the second conclusion, and that distinction changes everything. Sam and Percy are actually constantly responding to the same fear. Both of them are terrified of losing each other, but the difference is how they cope with that fear. Sam responds by creating distance and focusing on practical concerns. Percy responds by seeking assurance and connection. This is a classic, anxious and avoidant attachment styles. Unfortunately, those two coping mechanisms are catastrophically incompatible, especially when you have Sam, who is a horrible communicator, and Percy, someone who either word vomits her way through a situation or suffers in silence. The more that Sam pulls away, the more reassurance Percy needs. The more reassurance that Percy seeks, the more overwhelmed Sam becomes, and neither one of them understands what is happening, but they are creating a cycle that just consistently feeds itself. Unfortunately, Charlie arrives at exactly the wrong moment. Charlie is the balm to Percy's bruised ego. And before anyone comes for me, yes, Sam still loved Percy. We know that now. The problem is that love and presence are not always the same thing. Someone can love you deeply and still fail to meet your emotional needs. Someone can love you and still create distance and abandon you. And this painful reality is at the center of this section of the novel. Charlie, on the other hand, is present. He has read Percy's stories. He notices when she's upset. He asks her why she's been crying. He takes an interest in the things that matter to her and pays attention to her at a point in time when Sam is creating this incredible distance. And we already know from earlier that summer that Charlie disagrees with how Sam is handling everything with Percy. And so he kind of takes matters into his own hand. And listen, from one of my favorite love stories ever is my favorite quote, "Paying attention to things is how we show love." And of course, that's from Bill and Frank from The Last of Us, Happy Pride. But after a few months of feeling rejected by Sam, the kind of attention that Charlie offers her, the fact that he pays attention to her and she realizes it dawns on her in the moment that he does pay attention to her and know things about her is incredibly powerful. It is easy to underestimate how meaningful it is to be seen when you have spent so much time feeling invisible, and then when you have a person like Sam who makes you feel visible and then closes the curtain on that in the moments when maybe you need the connection even more. And Charlie is an interesting character because whereas the first half of the novel, we don't really know what his intentions are. But I think it's clear by the time we get to here that he does have feelings for Percy. They're not superficial. Looking back over the timeline, there are just simply too many moments for that interpretation to hold up. I'm actually embarrassed to say that when I first read the book, the first time through a while ago, I was convinced that Charlie was going to sexually assault Percy. I was convinced that that's what the big secret was, and she was trying to stuff it down because she didn't want to ruin the relationship between Sam and Charlie. I was convinced. And I really need to apologize to Charlie because after reading his book, he's actually my favorite Florek brother. Sam's perfectly fine. He's just not the book boyfriend for me, personally speaking. So I deeply want to apologize to Charlie, who I love infinitely more. Charlie does have his own book by the way, which I'm assuming we will cover on this podcast at some point, pending a season 2 of the show. But if you want to get a head start, it's called One Golden Summer. I'll tag it in the show notes below so you can read it if you want to spend more time with Charlie after this book is over. Either way, there are too many observations, too many acts of care, too many years of flirting with her. Charlie isn't just a guy who thought that Percy was attractive. He is somebody who genuinely cares about her and who has likely been carrying those feelings for a long time without wanting to override his brother. And every time that he sees his brother fucking fumble the ball with Percy, I think it's just adding to his frustration. Like, if I'm going to step aside and let you have her, then have her, then do the thing. We are not privy to a lot of the conversations that happen with Sam and Charlie off page. We're not even privy to a lot of the silent tension that is happening between them on page. So I have a feeling that the show is going to add a lot more of the emotional weight and understanding of their tension around Percy. I feel like we're going to have a conversation between Sam and Charlie in the show that is very Jeremiah and Conrad coded, where it's like, I love her and you love her too, but if you're going to dick around and, not go for it, then stand out of the fucking way, bro. And I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot more of that with Charlie and Sam in the show, even if I don't think they're going to take it to the same degree of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Now, do I think that the love that exists between Percy and Sam is the same kind of love that is existing between Percy and Charlie? No, but Percy acknowledges the entire book how hot Charlie is. So it's not like there's no attraction either. I think that Sam and Percy share something singular, something that shapes the entire trajectory of both of their lives. As Sam says, we are two halves of a whole. But I do think that Charlie wanted what Sam and Percy had. And I think that he, like Percy, wants to be a person that is chosen. And in a way, I feel that they are very similar like that, which is why I feel like they're a really good pair, especially at this moment where they're both probably missing Sam. They're both lonely and they're driven together by this desire of being chosen and being desired. And honestly, that realization makes Charlie a much sadder character than I had initially given him credit for the first time I read this book. I'm sorry, Charlie. I love him so much. Charlie has to spend years watching two people that he loves orbit each other, and yet time and time again, he watches Sam mess it up. Charlie is always standing at the edge of their relationship as something that was never really his, but inserting himself anyway. So think about that first kiss where he comes downstairs and he's like, who doesn't want to kiss Percy? And Delilah's like, Sam. And that's when he kisses her. And he's like, you snooze, you lose, Sam, because he's trying to make a point to him again and again. But even from that first time, he's had a bit of a crush on Percy, I think. That's how I take it. You can let me know if you feel different, femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. And that is a huge foreshadowing, right? You snooze, you lose. Hello? Does that excuse every choice that Charlie makes? Obviously not, but it makes him a far more sympathetic character than just a simple obstacle in the way of Sam and Persephone's romance. So when Percy and Charlie do finally sleep together, Percy is getting some emotional relief. For one brief moment, she gets to stop wondering whether or not she's desired, whether or not she's cherished. She gets to stop hoping that Sam will finally choose her, because all along here is Charlie, who has been telling her year after year he would choose her, and that he pays attention to her, and that he wants her. After everything that she's been through, and after months of feeling abandoned and emotionally untethered, that certainty feels intoxicating to somebody who has this sort of anxiety like Percy has. And then much to Charlie's chagrin, the next morning she experiences her first panic attack. Nothing damages an ego faster than being someone's biggest regret. Up until then, the story is largely about longing. And after this, it becomes a story about shame and how to process your shame. Percy has spent her entire life trying to be good and likable. And then suddenly she finds herself occupying a role that she never imagined for herself, where her devotion and her obsession for Sam honestly comes crumbling down. Like Sam says, she always felt that he was perfect. And so she holds him up on this pedestal in her mind's eye. And yet when he rejects her again and again and again in these different ways over different periods, she is the one who eventually falls from grace, almost as if Sam on the pedestal, like she's holding her hand up and he's grabbing onto her. And when he decides, like, I need some space, it's just like she slips from his grasp and into the arms, that are waiting to catch her below from this pedestal in her mind. And now this thing that has been so fundamental to her, which is being Sam's person, is just gone. And that leads her to betray the relationship that she once valued the most. She becomes the person that she never really wanted to be. And yet it feels almost inevitable that this happens because Sam, over the course of many years, rejects her time and time and time again. And what's even more painful is that nobody punishes Percy as severely as Percy punishes herself. For 12 years, she carries this secret like it is a life sentence. She treats one terrible decision as evidence of a fundamental flaw in her character. She doesn't just regret what happened, she allows it to define her and to make her think that she is unworthy of forgiveness or of grace. Meanwhile, she doesn't hold Sam accountable at all for putting her in this position emotionally, or for Charlie to be able to tamp down his desires when he knew what had been percolating between her and Sam for years. She is the only one who is like mentally berating herself and emotionally berating herself for doing this thing when she was a teenager. Like, teenagers fuck up and make mistakes. And she does make a mistake. And it's a huge mistake. And it's a painful mistake. And it's one that hurts a lot of people that she loves. But it is just a mistake. And transforming that singular moment into her entire identity is not necessary, especially when men have done crazier things. Men have done crazier things. Regret is healthy and accountability is necessary, but neither one of those things requires a person to spend 12 years believing that they are fundamentally unworthy of love or forgiveness. To me, that's the greatest tragedy of this novel. It isn't just what happened between Charlie and Percy. It is the fallout that follows. And the real tragedy is that Percy spends more than a decade believing that one decision has permanently disqualified her from any form of happiness or intimacy with other people. She holds literally everybody at bay. She convinces herself that this is the worst thing that she has ever done, and in doing so, she denies herself the grace that she would almost certainly extend to anyone else if the situation was reversed, especially Sam. Okay? So moving on from the situation, let's talk about the love of my life, Sue. Sue has always represented home. Not just for Charlie and Sam, but for Percy as well. And throughout the novel, she becomes a constant source of warmth and safety. In many, many ways, Sue is the adult woman that Percy grows up wanting to become. She's ambitious without being cold. She is nurturing without being passive. And she is confident without making other people feel small, especially Percy. She builds Percy up. She has built her own life up that reflects her values, and she has raised two sons who are allowed to be vulnerable and loving and emotionally expressive. Sue isn't just a mother figure in the novel. She's an example of the kind of person that Percy admires and trusts. When Sue dies, something much larger dies with her. The illusion that Percy can continue running from her past. Sue's death forces Percy to return to Barry's Bay, not just physically and emotionally, but psychologically. There are many times throughout this part of the book where she will say, like, I see a phantom ghost of my younger self, or me and Sam laying on the raft, or me and Sam doing this thing. She's getting these echoes of her past, quite literally, psychologically, while she's in this space. And in many ways, it feels almost mythological, which brings me back to the name Persephone and the connection that it has as it runs throughout the novel. At the end of the book, I became convinced that Sue's death is the event that actually pulls Percy into the underworld. When we think about the myth of Persephone, of course, we think about the romance with Hades or the abduction, right? Depends on what kind of storytelling we're into. But at its core, it's really a story about descent. It is about being forced to confront a world that you have been avoiding. It is about transformation through suffering and emerging from the darkness fundamentally changed. That is exactly what happens to Percy. For 12 years, she has been living in an emotional kind of winter. She's trapped by her inability to forgive herself. And on paper, her life looks successful. She has a career that she's good at and that she seemingly likes. She dates, I guess. She gets breakup bangs like any respectable 30-year-old. But emotionally, she is frozen. She never fully moves on, she never fully heals, and she doesn't really allow herself to reconnect with the version of her younger self that existed before everything fell apart. And then Sue dies, and suddenly Percy has no choice but to descend back into the place that she has spent 12 years avoiding. Barry's Bay becomes her underworld. It's quite literally where the ghost of Summer's past live. The ghost of her friendship with Sam, the ghost of her one night with Carley, the ghost of the girl that she used to be. And every version of Percy that she is mourning is there waiting for her on the lake. It's giving young blood, okay? So let's chat about Delilah too, who is, I think, important in this second half of the book. She becomes a mirror for Percy in a lot of ways. So when they were 13, right, Delilah humiliates her. She's embarrassed, she lashes out, she uses that cruelty to protect herself, and Percy carries that wound for years. But then when adulthood arrives, or near adulthood arrives, the roles reverse. Percy becomes the one who lashes out and projects her inner dialogue onto Delilah. So when Delilah tells Percy that she saw Sam at a party, because Delilah and Sam go to the same college, that he drunkenly hit on her, Percy explodes. She calls Delilah a slut, and she weaponizes shame against her. And of course, this is what Percy is just thinking about herself for sleeping with Charlie. What's remarkable is that Delilah has such a mature response. She recognizes that Percy is hurting, and she tells her that she understands. She's like, I understand that you're hurting, but you can't talk to me like this. Call me when you're ready to apologize. And Percy never does. Not for years. Not until she finally mends things with Sam, because that friendship becomes another casualty of her shame, another relationship that she cannot bear to revisit, because in doing so, she would be required to confront what she's done. And she is just suffering with it instead. The irony is that Percy spends 12 years assuming that she is seen as a villain to all of these other people. Meanwhile, Sam admits that he's never stopped loving her. Charlie never stopped protecting her. And Delilah literally was just waiting for an apology and knew that she would get there maybe eventually. The people around her that are involved in the situation have already made room for complexity and for nuance. Percy is the only one insisting that she must be reduced to this singular moment. Yes, Percy made a mistake. She made a significant one, but so did Sam. Sam rejected her when she needed clarity. He withdrew when she needed connection. And then he comes home like a crazy fucking man that he is. Men are so fucking out of their mind. Then he proposes to her at a moment when he has just sown doubt and uncertainty and hurt into their relationship. But he's either too dense to realize that that's what he's done, or too in denial to realize that that's what he's done. And of course, Charlie makes mistakes too. The difference is that neither one of them spends 12 years turning those mistakes into their identity, and Percy does. That is why the ending works for me. It's not because Sam and Percy finally get together, because honestly, if the romance were the only thing that were resolved, I don't think the ending would feel nearly as satisfying to me. The ending works because Percy finally stops treating her life and this one decision like a fucking crime scene and allows herself to be human and flawed and complicated and forgivable. Forgivable. That's why I love the final image of the novel. It's not just that she's planning to ask Sam to marry her, although I agree that that's an absolutely boss move. I love this so much for her. It's that she had this ring fashioned from her old friendship bracelet. And that bracelet once represented their childhood together and their connection to each other. And eventually it represented the loss. But by transforming it into a ring, Percy doesn't erase the past or pretend that it never happened. Instead, she reshapes it into something new. And that's what they get to do together as they move forward. So that feels like the perfect ending for a novel that has been interested in her growth as a person over the perfection of the romance or the relationship in and of itself. In the end, it's not really a love story about Sam and Percy. It is about Percy learning to come home to herself and forgive herself. It is a story about self-forgiveness, and I love it so much. That is why Percy is one of my favorite characters. She's complicated, she's nuanced, and she is complex. And I think that women in fiction don't necessarily always have that complexity, especially in romance novels. A lot of times we are looking at the main male character being somebody who's flawed and the female character having to be somebody who helps them through that or sift through that in some way. The fact that Percy is the one who is just as equally flawed here is special to me, and I love it so much. All right, let's crack open the burn book where we will look at the superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award. This is strictly for the femme and the furious. It is the quote or the moment that relays the most feminine rage. Goes to Percy, who says, I loved Sam, but this wasn't fair. Maybe he didn't know what he wanted, didn't know how cruel he was being, but I couldn't let myself be played while he figured it out. You're confusing me, I said, and I pushed him away. I should go home. Perfect. We love this for her. The Shiro Award. This award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering. And it goes to Chantal, who says, you think I don't see you, but I do. I see how you keep almost everyone around you at a distance. I see how little you care about the pompous douchebags you date. And though you've buried your shit with Sam under more piles of shit, I know this is a big fucking deal. Love this. Love this for her. Love that Percy has a friend like this. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode. And it goes to Percy, who says, you might not always feel that way, Sam. You've pushed me away before. You kept the course for me. And then I spent most of the summer wondering why I barely heard from you. And then that email. I can't trust that you'll love me forever when I don't even know if you'll love me next month. Did that hurt to read? Yes, it's like a gut punch. Is it a deflection of her truth about what has happened with Charlie? Also, yes. But is she wrong to say this? No, she's not. Speak your truth trophy for the best quote or line. It's a very simple one, but it goes to Sam, who says, I used to lie awake at night thinking about these freckles. I reread that line like 5 times. I almost put it in the honorary heartthrob, but I saved that for Percy proposing to Sam. I think that Percy proposing to Sam is romantic and cheesy in all the best ways, and I love it so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Femme Furious. I will be back on Friday. We are diving into the lake. We are still at Barry's Bay. We will be looking at episodes 1 and 2, possibly 3 and 4, of the TV show based off of this book on Amazon Prime, which is Every Year After, slight name change. Can't wait to see what they do. I'm really excited for it. I love you all so much. And until then, keep calm and also keep out of Charlie Florek's bed unless you are me. Okay, bye.